in the year 50,000 BC, or an hour later in Tasmania, man came up with an invention believed to be more significant than the invention of the wheel. It was nothing less than the invention of music, discovered by a nameless man who noticed that using a regular syncopated rhythm to club a defenseless fawn to death was quite pleasing on the ear. To this day, the man's family still receives royalty checks whenever a fawn is clubbed in this way. The man's second single, Sunglasses at Night, was less well received, but proved to be a surprise hit for Corey Hart thousands of years later. Every era moves to the beat of a different drum, and every week we turn to one man to tell us what those beats mean and why on earth Phil Collins had to be responsible for over half of them. Ladies and gentlemen of the world, that man is Captain Blow, and this is the Blow Parade.
Blow Parade! Blow Parade!
Wells, how the hell are you? The good captain here, Captain Blow, at your service for another week, steering the good ship we like to call Pop. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be towing another couple of ships behind us this week, one called Rock and one called Roll. And it's all thanks to our very good friends at Putney Curries.
If it's chips or fruit or banana split, we'll pour curry all over it.
The Blow Parade with Captain Blow.
On board the good ship Blow, and let's now get that ship out of the dock by bringing out the Captain's Wheel. That's right, Spectre had his wall of sound, but only Captain Blow has a wheel of sound. Plus, I don't live in prison, so that's Blow 2, Spectre 0. All right, you know how it works. Every spoke on the Captain's Wheel contains a different year from the classic age of pop. And I'll give that wheel a spin, and when our guest caller yells out, "Stop in the name of love," whatever year the wheel stops on is the year we'll take a Blow Parade look back on. It's as simple as that, and we've got Desmond on the line. How you doing there, Des?
Yeah, it's Desmond, actually.
Yep, that's what I said, wasn't it?
I don't like it getting shortened to Des, just Desmond.
Your wish is my command, Desmond. And what's your favourite classic age of pop, would you say? The 60s, the 70s?
2007, I quite like.
Also a classic year, no question. Look, they're all classic years on the Captain's Wheel, so I'm going to give the wheel a spin, and all you have to do is yell out, "Stop in the name of love." It's a reference that predates 2007, by the way. And whichever year the wheel lands is the year we'll look back on. Are you ready there, Des?
Desmond.
All right, let's spin that Captain's Wheel.
Stop.
No, you haven't quite got it. You need to say, "Stop in the name of love."
Yeah, that's what I did.
No, you just said stop. It's not quite the same thing. Do you want to give it another go? Okay. Once again, from the top, let's spin that Captain's Wheel.
Stop.
No, you've done the same thing again. I need you to say stop in the name of love. You're just saying stop.
What's the difference?
Well, it's a reference to a lyric from the classic age of pop. That's how the segment works. That's how it has worked for the last 14 years. It's not a difficult concept, Des. Desmond, sorry. Look, how about we give it one more try? Do you think you've got it this time?
Stop.
No, not yet. Wait until I spin the wheel and okay, one last time then. Here we go. And let's spin that Captain's Wheel. Anytime now, Desmond. I think we might have lost him there. Obviously a bit too challenging for him in the end, so how about I just stop the wheel right there in the name of love and expediency and reveal that this week's year is 1979!
1979 is often regarded as perhaps the most significant year in music since 1978. And it was David Bowie himself who said that 1980 would almost certainly never have happened had 1979 not happened first. It was the year when disco was king, except in Thailand, where the king was still Rama IX, and it would be at least another 10 years before he abdicated and let disco take the throne. But more than anything, 1979 was a year of exciting experimentation, which spawned bands like Weather Report, who in turn spawned offshoot bands like Traffic Report, Snow Report, and Live Cross to the Chopper for a finance update report. Although to this day it still remains unclear why the finance update had to be done from a chopper. Such were the crazy times of 1979.
1979 saw big disco #1 hits for Gloria Gaynor, Donna Summer and the Bee Gees, but not to be outdone, even Australia's Midnight Oil was trying to get in on the disco action.
There's a red road to Maralinga and a tin shed that's turned to rust. But now it's Saturday night and I'm feeling alright. Let's have a disco here in the dust.
Jabba-looka jab,
Land rights for the dance floor.
jabba-looka jab.
Funky! But perhaps the biggest hit of all in 79 belonged to Rupert Holmes, who scored a #1 with Escape, otherwise known as the Pina Colada song, a success he was unable to reproduce despite numerous follow-up singles, including the Lemon, Lime and Bitters song.
If you like lemon, lime and bitters in a tall glass with ice.
The Midori and Lemonade song,
If you like Midori and lemonade. If you like your drinks green.
the six-pack of UDL song,
If you like sculling UDL cans.
and his pint of beer with a packet of pork scratchings song.
If you like a pint of beer with a packet of pork scratchings and some peanuts as well.
By then, Holmes was clearly just clutching at straws, but his musical bar tab had sadly run out. But the same could not be said for our 1979 feature artist, the truly epic and seminal prog rock band Lake Deuteronomy, whose classic album Spool in the Pits of Prometheus stands alongside Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, in my opinion, as one of the greatest prog rock albums ever made, and we'll go behind the making of that record very shortly. And it's all thanks to Putney Curries.
Ice cream with a nice choc mint. We'll pour curry all over it.
This is the Blow Parade, and... Ooh, there she blows! Time to get into this week's classic record, which, as I mentioned, comes from the brilliant British prog rock band Lake Deuteronomy. The year was 1979, and the album was Spool in the Pits of Prometheus.
Far beneath the earth, there lies submerged a vast and sunken kingdom. Atlantis will rise today.
By the mid-70s, Lake Deuteronomy had become one of the biggest bands on the planet, literally, since there were 43 members in the group. But having so many talents in the one group wasn't without its challenges, as guitarist and lead vocalist Mick Keno recalls.
In the early days, having a 43-piece group was not a huge problem, although with the sort of small venues we were playing, you could usually only fit 7 or 8 of us on the stage, and the rest would have to play either on top of the bar or near the toilets, or in some cases actually outside, on the street, often stretching around the corner. And you can hear on some of those early live recordings of ours that the saxophone is at least 2 blocks away from the rest of the group.
Russell Reed, who was one of 7 keyboard players in the group, says with growing success came new obstacles.
When we got successful, we started to see a few egos emerge in the group, like on tours some of the guys started demanding a second combi van rather than just have all 43 of us squeeze into the one combi, and there were some creative differences forming as well, I remember. I think 8 of us were quite happy being an experimental rock band, but there were 14 others who wanted to pull us in a reggae direction, 12 who wanted to be an pa band, 6 who I remember were very into Gilbert and Sullivan light operetta, and another 2 who just wanted to do impressions of bird calls. And I think when you listen to that third record, the Egypt record, I think by trying to keep all parties in the band happy, we actually ended up with a rather messy compromise.
I am the very pattern of a gentleman with epaulets effectual, but very small, I bet I could protect you all from getting all, and that's all a spectacle. get happy.
Following poor sales for the Egypt record, especially in Egypt, Keener and Reed decided to split from the rest of the group and relaunch Lake Deuteronomy as a much leaner, dedicated, 6-piece prog band.
No, well, we never used the term prog or prog rock ourselves. We always found that a little bit pretentious. We preferred to call it Fortschrittliche, which is German for prog.
Rather than wallow in the Egypt debacle, the new lineup went straight back into the studio to record what was to be the first of 3 landmark British albums. Newspaper.
Page 1, October 12, 1975. The Daily Mail, 40p.
Mick was a former journalist and had always been very interested in newsprint, so he had this idea to do a concept album setting to music an entire edition of the Daily Mail newspaper.
As police continue their investigations into the circumstances that may have led to an explosive device being detonated.
The idea was to do every single item in the newspaper as a separate song. Not just the front page, not just the sports section, but everything. The index, the TV guide, marriage, births and deaths, even the crossword puzzle.
1 across, standoffish, distant, 5 letters. 4 across, excessive, bombastic, 7 letters.
The newspaper record was a critical hit, attracting positive reviews, except ironically in the Daily Mail, who slammed the album for being poorly written and researched. Recording engineer Pitts Parsons.
The newspaper album was basically successful because of 2 key songs. Firstly, the movie listing song.
Dog day afternoon, session times 4:37, 39, 45. Jaws, session times 2:15, 5:30, 8:45. Barry Lyndon, session times 11:15, final day.
That was a song people liked because they actually wanted to know what fucking time the movies were on. That was information they wanted. And, of course, the other popular song was that great sex scandal news story about the Tory MP who was caught with his knob in a beehive.
Disgraced Tory MP Hugo Flynn Boyle has been forced to resign after he was caught with his penis inside a beehive. It is the 4th time the Shadow Secretary has tried to have intercourse with a hive this financial year, and follows an incident last January when he was observed on Hampstead Heath fingering a squirrel.
Although it sold a lot of copies, the newspaper album didn't make us rich, really, because the royalties for the lyrics had to be shared with about 200 Daily Mail journalists and sub-editors and classifieds writers. But that just gave us the impetus to get straight to work on the next record, which of course became The Flood.
The Flood was not just an album, it was a phenomenon. I mean, I think Mick always conceived it as this big rock opera live event, and originally he wanted to perform it in the middle of the Pacific Ocean to create the effect of the Great Flood. But the promoters weren't confident that the punters would come.
So instead we had to build this massive stage ring, and throughout the show gallons of water would gradually rise up in the auditorium like a rising flood. So by the end of the show, the audience would be completely submerged.
No one had tried anything quite like it ever before. And after the multiple drownings, I don't think anyone ever will again.
Can anybody help me? Can anybody save me? Does anybody here remember Edith Piaf? Oh, Mommy, did she die in the flood?
Does anybody here remember Edith Piaf? Oh, Mommy, did we all die in the flood?
Good evening. On BBC News
another 6 people have drowned at a performance of Lake Deuteronomy's controversial rock opera, The Flood. Ticket holders concerned about their ability to hold their breath underwater for more than an hour have been encouraged by promoters to head for the higher seats in the dress circle, where the flood special effects are less treacherous. Elsewhere in the news, former Tory MP Hugo Flynn Boyle has been caught once again, this time going down on a badger.
The Flood Tour was controversial, to say the least. But one man who did understand Lake Deuteronomy's vision was record company mogul Otto Gannon.
Now, Ronnie, don't be like that.
Otto Gannon struck me as a curious mix of someone who was both very eccentric and also very ruthless. I remember he wore a monocle in the eye of his penis. And he also had a habit of walking everywhere on stilts, but for some reason he only had one stilt. So one leg was always much higher up than the other.
When I first met Otto, which was at one of Elton John's parties, I think, he was dragging a large coffin behind him. Not easy at the best of times, but positively difficult when you're on one stilt. And it transpired that inside the coffin was the body of his third wife, who'd been dead at least 2 years.
He was so in love with her that rather than bury or cremate her, he just kept her in the coffin and took it with him everywhere he went.
I think it was particularly hard on his fourth wife, Patty, to have to live with this coffin beside them every time they went to a restaurant or to the theatre or even in their own bedroom. But, that was Otto.
Otto Gannon signed Lake Deuteronomy to his label Parasite Records, offering the band an unprecedented deal which would give the group total artistic control over all aspects of the record, except the music, the lyrics, cover art, and production.
People said I was fucking crazy to give them such free rein. And at the time I probably agreed with them, but I believed in Lake Deuteronomy. I thought they were better than anal sex itself. And I knew in my bones that those lads had an album in them. Oh, fuck. My third wife's just fallen over.
Gannon's support would be of crucial importance during the making of the band's next album, Spool in the Pits of Prometheus. But despite his faith in Lake Deuteronomy, Gannon did take the unusual step of testing the songs on the public in advance, through focus groups and household surveys.
Afternoon, madam. We're just conducting some research into an upcoming record. Could you tell me, please, how do you rate the following chord sequence? Would you describe it as very pleasing, pleasing, satisfactory, unpleasing, or very unpleasing?
Pleasing.
Right, great. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the time signature that the song is written in? 10 being extremely happy with the time signature, and 1 being extremely unhappy with the time signature.
Why are you on one stilt?
Just a number from 1 to 10, if you will.
The main message that came out of the market research was that people wanted fewer songs about desolation and loss, and fewer songs written in the key of F. And we took both points on board, and at the end of the day, I think we came away with a better album because of it.
When you were just a young boy, you used to radiate joy. Then you went round the band, you raving nutcase. You went cuckoo, bonkers, insane. You now think you're a train. You're a lunatic, fruit loop, crazy, raving nutcase. During dinner you dance while eating your pants, wearing a vase on your head, stuffing sweet corn up your nostrils all day, scribbling pictures of testicles over your face.
Originally conceived as a double album, Spool in the Pits of Prometheus slowly blew out to become a 12-disc release, largely due to Mick Keener's guitar solo on the title track.
That guitar solo alone went for 7 of the 12 discs, and people often ask me, they say, Pitts, how could you let it go on for so long? But personally, I don't think there's an unnecessary note in the entire thing.
It took me a long time to get the exact sound I wanted, and I was becoming very frustrated, but luckily it was Pitts Parsons in the end who came up with what turned out to be an ingenious and a very simple idea.
I said, Mick, just for the sake of argument, why don't we try a take where we put you underwater in a deep-sea dive chamber beside the wreck of the Titanic? I mean, it worked for the monkeys.
Record company boss Otto Gannon.
I thought they'd go and fucking bar me when they told me about it, as if they didn't have enough problems with water doing the Flood concerts. And now they wanted to go 12,000 feet down to the ocean floor and take with them a fucking guitar the size of a piano. It was as fucking loopy as a contortionist arsehole.
The process was not without its logistical challenges, obviously, not the least of which being that as a sound engineer I am not an underwater specialist, so we had to get someone in who was.
Mark Rubio speaking.
I got a call from Otto Gannon saying they needed to do some BSL recording for the new Lake record. BSL, that's below sea level. And as luck would have it, I had a vacancy in my diary after Springsteen canceled on me and decided to do the river on dry land. Buck Rubio was one of the industry's most respected underwater producers.
There was a great rumour that during a musicians' strike in 1969, Buck somehow managed to train sea slugs to sing all the vocal parts on the Bee Gees' Odessa record.
No. The sea slugs only sang Robin's parts. Barry and Morris did all their own vocals. Pitts Parsons' idea to record underwater, combined with Buck Rubio's deep-sea experience, appeared to pay off. The guitar tracks were recorded successfully, and the group moved back into the studio to record their final overdubs.
People always talk about the underwater guitar, but I think one of the most underrated aspects of the recording is actually the drumming. Phil Underwood did an amazing job on percussion, and I can't remember whose idea it was, but we decided to do all the drum takes on an upside-down drum kit.
Right there, Phil, you just put your leg through this. Basically, we had to glue the drum kit to the ceiling of the studio and put Phil in a special harness so he could play the skins upside down. And then your other leg through there, and we'll just hoist you up and Bob's your uncle.
The blood is rushing to my head a little.
You will get some of that. That is quite normal.
So I'm actually feeling quite faint.
How's your hi-hat? It sounds like one of those harebrained ideas, but it actually made all the difference in the world. Have a listen. Here, this is your regular 4/4 beat on a regulation drum kit. Now compare that to the same beat on Phil's upside down kit. It's a completely different sound, and I think you can really hear it cut through on the closing track. Okay, let's go. We're going to do the small close, and it's the small and the picture from Prometheus album.
I am lost, but you are bound. These ancient pages are unbound, like some unfinished play by Aeschylus. But the kitchen kettle does remind the kindly poets to unwind the spool in the pits of Prometheus.
Spool in the Pits of Prometheus was released on November 4th, 1978, and shot straight to number 1 on the Billboard charts, where it remained for several months, owing to a long-running strike at the Billboard printers.
People are always asking me, they say, Pits, what does the album name mean? Well, how the fuck would I know what Spool in the Pits of Prometheus means? Search fucking me. What does Rubber Soul mean? What does the Best of Bette Midler mean?
Pitchfork music writer Armando Hirsch.
I think the term seminal gets bandied around far too often, which is why I prefer to use the term visceral, but if ever an album deserved to be called seminal, then I would say In the Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel was probably the... Hello? Hello? Am I still on? Hey, sorry. Yeah, can you reconnect my microphone, please? Yeah, that's right. I write for Pitchfork. I'm entitled to talk about Neutral Milk Hotel. Hey, come back with that mic. I haven't even started...
Lake Deuteronomy never released another record because in many ways there was nothing for them to say that they hadn't already expressed so perfectly on Spool in the Pits of Prometheus.
Is it the best record we ever made? I don't know. That's for others to say, but I do think it's definitely the longest record we ever made, and for me that's the important thing.
The Blow Parade with Captain Blow.
They don't get much more epic than that, do they? An incredible story behind an incredible album. Magic stuff. There she blows! The final final whistle. Before I go, a very big thank you, of course, to Molly Neves, who put that feature special together. Molly's just joined us here on the production team, and I thought she did an absolutely smashing job for a first effort. My only tip, just watch your levels there, sweetheart. A couple of times you were creeping into the red, but not a bad first stab at all for a young debutante. Might even let you come back next week, eh? But I certainly hope you, dear listener, can join me again next week for another blow-by-blow look at a classic year in pop. So until we next sail the high seas of pop, I'm Captain Blow, and I'll catch you next time on this, my Blow Parade.
Blow parade, blow parade, it's a blow parade, blow parade.
Captain Blow would like to thank Chris Taylor, Andrew Hansen, and Craig Shufton for making the Blow Parade possible. Podcasts are available at triplej.net.au.